Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to just give a quick second to allow a couple of more people to jump on, and then we will get started. Okay, it is officially 1:02, so we are going to jump in. I do not want to waste any of our time or the time of our incredible panelists. Welcome to our first Moaa webinar of the year, How to Determine Your Professional Fit Part 2. This was a highly recommended and requested follow-up from last spring. And so we brought you an additional set of panelists, and the focus this session is really going to be on how you're determining your professional fit, but when you're in the front end of your career. So we've targeted this towards individuals in the 1 to 6 years of their career, and we have some very seasoned professionals. We want to thank the NAIA for their partnership with this webinar. We've been partners on both Part 1 and Part 2 of how to determine your professional fit. So what I want to do is I want to jump right in and allow each of our panelists to introduce themselves and give you all a quick synopsis of their career path. Devin, if you could please start for us.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Angel, thank you. And it's great to see everybody here, and happy Tuesday. Devin Crosby, and I serve as Director of Athletics at Lynn University right now. Given just a quick synopsis of my career path, I started off as an intern at Eastern Michigan University. And it was something that really caught my attention as Lee's doing that applause. And I'm actually going to talk about a little bit later. And Lee doesn't know this. When I was there as an intern, Lee was the associate athletics director for, I believe, operations or external operations at the time. And he took such an interest in me. And I just saw myself as just some, 21, 22-year-old intern. But that was something that always really impressed me, which will kind of lead me to some other items. So I'm very thankful to Lee in what he was able to demonstrate in my career as a model. So then after Eastern Michigan, I went to the College of Holy Cross. That was my first full-time job in Worcester, Massachusetts. I went from the College of Holy Cross to University of Houston. And then in those two roles, I worked in operations and marketing, if you will. And then was able to get promoted upwards at the University of Houston up into an assistant athletics director role. Was there for about 4 years, and then I left and went to St. Louis University and served as the associate athletics director for external operations. And then from St. Louis, went to University of Virginia, worked at University of Virginia for 3 years there. And then at that point left to go to Northeastern. And that's when I transitioned into development. Worked there as the assistant and then the associate athletics director for university advancement. And then after Northeastern, went to Towson University, where I served as the deputy director of athletics. Went to Kent State as a deputy director of athletics, and then here at Lynn University. So in the last 20 some years, you might think I'm on the witness protection program. So got a chance to work at a lot of different institutions. As you can see, some private, some public, some big, some small. And so that's a little bit of my career path in a nutshell.
Thank you, Devin. Rochelle?
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Rochelle Taylor. I'm Director of Athletics at Henry Ford College, which is in Dearborn, Michigan. It's a community college. I actually started in athletics, kind of a diverse background. As I was working on a master's in sports administration, I was serving as an athletic director at a local high school in Detroit. And as I was in school, I realized, and being a former Division I athlete, I realized I really did want to focus on the college level of athletics. And I started an internship at University of Michigan. So my first foot in the door being at a Big Ten institution, which was amazing. After my internship, I did stay on as a promotions assistant. And then I moved on to North Carolina A&T State University as assistant athletic director. So I went from a Big Ten to HBCU. Great experience there. I probably got the most hands-on athletics experience working at North Carolina A&T for 3 years. From there, I left and went to the NCAA national office. I was there for 14 years. I worked in several areas. I left as director of professional development, which at that time did a lot of the work we worked closely with what was the predecessor for MOAA. We worked with programs to get more women, more people of color in athletic positions, coaching, administration. We did so many programs. I left after 14 years. The NCAA at that time had their own foundation that did community outreach youth programs. I was president of the National Youth Sports Corp for another 4 years. And then when that corporation closed down, I ended up moving back to the Detroit area, coming here to Henry Ford College. I've been here since 2011. And it's actually a perfect spot for me at this point. But I've had that experience of being at the high school level and then being Big Ten, HBCU, now at a community college, a very diverse background. And then of course, my work with the NCAA.
Awesome, thank you. Lee Reed.
Thanks, Angel. Hi, my name is Lee Reed, Director of Athletics, currently at Georgetown University. I've been here since 2010. I started go back to when I tried to get into coaching when I was in sort of the early to mid 80s out at the University of New Mexico, left that business to get into private family business, which was, I think people have heard me say this before, McDonald's restaurants. Did that for 8 years, part of the owner-operator program. My uncle owned a bunch of McDonald's in Cleveland, Ohio. So that was a great experience, learned a lot there. And then went back to grad school at the University of New Mexico, transitioned to administration, worked at NACDA, worked at Eastern Michigan, where I met Devin. Then first athletics director job was at Cleveland State, where I had played basketball there as an undergrad. So it was like coming back home, and served there for about 8 years, and then came to Georgetown in 2010. So that's my quick path.
Thank you, Lee. And last but not least, Kiki.
Hey everybody, Kiki Baker Barnes, Commissioner of the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, the only HBCU conference in the NAIA. I like to say that, feels good. My career actually started, well, let me preface this. Let me say this to y'all. First of all, I didn't want a career in athletics, so you need to know that I was supposed to be on TV. So you need to know that that was my desire first. And when I got to my final year of graduation and realized I didn't know what I was going to do, I was grateful that I had coaches who saw something in me and offered me an internship opportunity. So my career actually got started as a graduate assistant basketball coach at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. I was there for a couple of years and then got my first full-time gig at Southern University at Baton Rouge for a year, 2 years at a junior college as a head coach. Immediately following that, circled around eventually as an assistant, and it became athletic director at Dillard University, where I spent, I was there for 16 years before I just recently on June 1st moved into this position as commissioner. So I think I've done, let's see, Division I, I've done junior college, yeah, HBCU, not HBCU. I think I've kind of been around all the remit, but yeah, I'm very happy with what I'm doing now, but this definitely wasn't what I had planned out for my career.
I'm sure you didn't have planned being the athletic director at Dillard and serving as the interim commissioner at the same time. So I will throw that out there, even though Kiki did not. Well, we're going to jump right in. I will say, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat directly to me. We have a set of questions and then some that came in from registration, but we'll jump right in. Devin, can you talk to the group about your why? Why athletics? Why are you doing what you're doing?
You know, a lot of it, it's amazing how, you know, we work in this business, and if you start off, let's say, as maybe an intern, or maybe you're a student athlete, I think there's interactions you can have that can almost set as like a foundation. And there's actually two that really pressed upon me. I won't go into granular detail of them, but I ran track at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania as an undergrad. And my interactions with the athletic director there really impressed upon me to want to get into this business of athletics. So then that led me to go into Eastern Michigan, as I mentioned, and that's where I met Lee. And that really, the interaction with Lee, interaction with my athletic director at Slippery Rock, has really set my why. And my why is really one word, and it's the word care. I look at Lee looking upon a 22-year-old young person and taking an interest in me because he cared. He didn't have to care. He wasn't my supervisor at Eastern Michigan, but he took an interest in me, which was very important to me in my career. And our relationship lasted throughout some time, which I'm very appreciative of. And the same thing, I believe, for my athletic director at Slippery Rock. So what have I adopted is my why is I want to care so much about our student athletes, about our head coaches, our assistant coaches, our leadership team, and our administration, that when times are tough, when maybe we're in moments of uncertainty, that every single person within the Lynn orbit knows that, you know, Devin cares. Again, whether you're a student athlete or coach, that's really, really important to me. I feel that you can really change the world through something simple as care. And that's what Lee really demonstrated to me, again, early on in my career. So it's something I kept with. So that's what really, Angel, what wakes me up every morning and excites me is that if I can really demonstrate my care for everyone within this athletics orbit, no matter who you might be.
Thank you. Would any of the other panelists like to give their why?
I'll say for me, just the opportunity to make a difference. I think similar to what Devin shared, I believe, and I have to preface this and say this because when you're trying to figure out, you know, where you're trying to go and what you want to do and where you want to ascend, you hear people say things like, well, I haven't had the opportunity, or my boss won't give me a shot. But what I can tell you is in every role I had, I created it. As the graduate assistant basketball coach, I created a ball club. I reached out to schools. I had little girls. They came every game. They sat next to us, and then I had a party for them. Then I ran the camp. Like, I just created stuff. I was like, oh, I think we should do this. So I'm just gonna do this. And so what those opportunities did for me, it gave me a chance to make a difference. I wanted to make an impact on the program. And I mean, I honestly, y'all, I just finished playing basketball. I didn't know that much, right? I don't have no X's and O's. Like, that's not where I was in the pecking order. I didn't have the experience, but I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make an impact. And I was trying to figure out, how do I do that from the position that I was in, which would have been considered the lowest position. But the opportunity to do something, it put a smile on those kids' faces. It made my girls understand that there were young women looking up to them. So it made them act a little bit better sometimes, you know, because it was like, oh, I got this little kid sitting over here. I can't throw a temper tantrum because I'm ticked off with coach. But in that small little way, when I didn't have a title or I wasn't in charge or considered a trailblazer, I was able to make an impact. And that's my why. That's what gets me going. And I'm really grateful I was able to find it early. I didn't know it, but when I reflect, I can see definitely it was like, yeah, we're gonna make a difference and we're gonna do something that's gonna be good. So That's my why.
Thank you. Lee, at the first part of your career, did you have any idea that you'd be doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, no, not at all. I don't even know when the first part of my career began because after being a student athlete at Cleveland State, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. My coach asked me to come out to University of New Mexico to get into coaching. So I did that, and I thought that was going to be my career, but did that for 3 years and then got called on another path with our family business and helped my uncle out going through that. So I think my athletics career probably started administratively, at least started probably back in the early 90s when I went back to New Mexico, went to grad school and then back to in Eastern Michigan. And so then I was just so happy to sort of be in college athletics because I had sacrificed so much personally to get to that point, to make that transition. It's looking back on it now was the right thing to do, but I lost a lot in that transition. In fact, I just realized, I think, Rochelle, did you run NYSP? I think she ran
Yes,
NYSP.
absolutely.
I went out there. I don't know how I got there, but they were kind enough to interview me. I had no idea what it was. I wasn't ready for it. And she did me the favor of saying thanks, but no thanks, because it really wasn't where my passion was. But I was just trying to find something that I wanted to do in athletics. And that seemed like something that was a good idea. But not long after that, then I was able to get a job at Eastern Michigan University in tickets. And when I took that job, I had never sold a ticket a day in my life. But I kind of convinced them. Tim Weiser took a gamble on me, and Gene Smith helped. And I think this panel, you'll hear a lot about others sort of helping you along your career. You never sort of do it alone. And so I was fortunate that a lot of people helped me get my foot in the door. And that was a big part of it. So no, I had no idea. I think once you're around it, everybody says they want to be an athletics director. So you start saying that too, but I don't really know. I'm not sure I knew what that meant at the time. I know I got a chance to interview for an AD job long before I was ready, and they turned me down. And that was a really good thing for me too, because I was not prepared for it. But as you go along, I think it starts to become clear. But for me, I just wanted to be in college athletics. I didn't care where it was. I didn't care what I was doing. I just wanted to be in the business. And so I didn't. First 5-6 years, I had no idea.
Well, I think that can be refreshing to everybody in the call today, because sometimes you feel like you have to know exactly where you want to end up, or if you start going on a different path than what you anticipated, that there's a failure, right? So I think it's important for everybody to hear that, you're at Georgetown right now, and even you couldn't have envisioned that at the beginning.
And that's a good point, Angel. I think, just being open to opportunity, because you never know where that next opportunity is going to come from. And so when you're just open to sort of the opportunity to do something different or take a different path, it's not always a direct line to where you want to get to. And sometimes when you're doing a good job and the job you have, which is the best job you'll ever have, is the one you have right now. That's the best job in the world, right? Is the one you have right now. And it's just, figuring out along the way. But if you're open to opportunities, then you find yourself someplace you never thought you'd be. So.
Absolutely.
Angel, if I could can I interrupt just to share just a mistake I made that I think Lee touched on something I would love to share with the group. Angel, thank you. So the question, Angel asked Lee, had he thought about wanting to be an athletics director? He talked about he just wanted to work in sports. He wasn't really sure. Well, me conversely, I decided I wanted to be an athletics director early on. Again, but I'll tell you about a huge mistake I made. I'll never forget. I looked at my wife when we were really young. I was working at the University of Houston. I was probably, 25, 26 years old. And I said, honey, I'm going to be an AD, and I'm going to be an AD by the age of 32. I sincerely actually said that. And I'll never forget the day I turned 32, I was actually sad that I wasn't sitting in the athletic director chair. And it took my wife to waken me and shaking me and be like, look at you. I can't believe you're in this position moping around. The reason why I tell you that story is because it's so important not to put a timestamp, because Lee touched on that. The job that you have right now is the most important job that you have, but success is defined in so many different ways. So it's important that you don't put a timestamp on certain levels or criteria, or maybe certain types of institutions that you might want to be at. If you're imparting and impacting in people's lives every day, then that's what success is. So I just want to share that, because that's definitely a huge mistake I made.
I love that too. I love that too, because early in my career, and especially after those 3 years I was at the HBCU, I literally said, I don't want to be an athletic director. I don't want to be that the buck stops here, because I just saw, the president's calling you at home, it's just always. It took years of getting my own confidence, managing teams, becoming a leader. And then the light bulb clicked and I said, I want to do this. I can do this. I'm looking forward to having a chance to put my vision and put my stamp on a program. But it takes, it does take time. It's good not to put concrete things in stone that you have to be at a certain place, or that if you don't want to do a position and then you change your mind, you want to go into another area of athletics, that's okay too. Just let it come to you, and, love the industry, and then find out where you fit in. And at different points in your life, you'll fit in at different places.
Absolutely. And Kiki, you touched on this a little bit, but in the first half of your career, what worked well for you in building yourself as a strong professional?
Woo, relationships. Relationships, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to articulate just really staying above mess. And I say that because, that people will get on staffs and they will talk poorly about people that they work with other people, or you'll just get in the spaces that you really shouldn't be in, instead of focusing on the work and what you can get out the situation. All of my situations weren't necessarily the best situations, but it was going to be the best because I made it the best. So finding the thing that's good, and we're going to work on that, and we're going to focus on those things, and I'm going to try to develop my skills as best as I can within the situation that I was given. So sometimes it's really hard for me to go back, okay, what was bad? I always find the good. So sometimes things may have been bad, but it's like, but I learned this though, or I got this because this thing was bad. It helped me develop this skill. And so the focus was always on what do I need to do to be the best I can and try to thrive in the space and make it a little bit better, right? I would call it probably defining your own success versus what somebody says should be success. So I learned early to create my own success metrics. And then I tell people what it was. Well, you're not doing this, but hey, we've done this. Look at this. And I could measure things. I found ways to kind of put measurements around what we were doing. And it's almost like you take on the narrative and you kind of dictate what is good, not what somebody else decides they want to put onto you. So I think early on, I figured out how to navigate contentious situations pretty well. Didn't spend a lot of time talking about people. Just was focused on like, what do we need to do? How can we do it? And how can we move the needle and staying in that lane? And that helped me to develop a lot of good relationships with tons of different people. And in this industry, it's all relationship driven. Everything is relationship driven. Network is all relationships. And if you can't be trusted, that's going to be really tough. It's going to be hard for you to move. it's going to be hard for you to move around. So I honestly think that's probably one of the things I did really, 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 really well. Now, I'll tell you, I know the question wasn't what I did really bad. I'll tell you the bad thing about where I was I was very cocky. And I felt like I was really good. And I had somewhat of, if I decide I'm not happy about my situation, I can get another job. Because I got all these relationships, right? And because I'm bringing all this stuff to the table. And so I moved really quickly. And at some point, and when I say quickly, I was 2 years as a GA, 1 year as a full-time assistant, and I got my first head coaching job at 25. I hadn't sat under anyone long enough to learn. So I made a lot of mistakes. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. And then I was an AD at 32. And so I was hopping around for a minute there. And I remember having a pause. I've had 1 year in my entire 20-something plus career where I wasn't in athletics. And during that year, it was a sit down, come to Jesus about this. Like, you've got to sit somewhere long enough and really see something all the way through, because I would say that's the thing that I had not done. Like, I had shown that I had talent and I could move around, I could get into these positions and I could get some stuff started, but could I finish is the question. And so the opportunity at Dillard was the opportunity where, one, I couldn't just move like I wanted to for some reasons. One, I wound up getting married, and then I inherited children at that time. I became a stepmom, and it forced me to have to stay in times where I felt like I had enough to leave and I could go make some more money and do some other things, but it really humbled me somewhat. But it was the best thing that happened to me because I was able to build and see something all the way through. And there's something about being able to finish. There's something about being able to finish, just hopping and moving, but being able to stay somewhere and see something all the way through. So I did very good with relationship management, but had some arrogance things going on too that I had to negotiate, had to toggle with a little bit.
Yeah, I think we will all experience that at some time or another, but absolutely your points about the importance of relationships and pulling out the positives and focusing your energy on doing the job that you're currently in well and staying planted long enough to grow are definite points for us all to be able to learn from. Rochelle, can you give us a couple of skills that you think are most important in having longevity in your career?
Yes, anyone that works with me, they probably would not be surprised. And these are some skills that I felt like I had to develop. And I think the earlier you develop and take ownership, Lee mentioned when I went to the NCAA initially, it was to run a youth program, national youth sports program, and nothing prepares you. I didn't even know that was part of intercollegiate athletics, running programs ended up being about 200 college campuses across the country. So there was nothing in my wheelhouse. It was just all transitional skills. And the things that allowed me to be successful and things that I picked up along the way, number one is to really be able to think critically. Like, critical thinking is very important. Don't just focus on this is the task in front of me. How does that impact the person who's going to get this work before you, coming from you? Like, how are you helping to shape the vision, meeting the goals and the responsibilities, the goals and visions of the organization? You have to be able to think outside the box, put pieces together, put 2 and 2 together to make 5 sometimes, but really the big picture, taking ownership and really being able to think about, how is this task important? Why is it important? Why are we doing it? And being able to handle your workload that way. The second thing is problem solving. I mean, we have to be able to understand in athletics, every day looks different. We get challenges all the time, and we have to realize how do we get past this? There are things to learn in the problems, but you have to also realize when you have time to sit back and reflect and when you need to actually solve the problem that's in front of on your desk at this moment. You know, a student athlete walks in, how are we going to look at this and who needs to be involved? And, you know, your own level of empowerment. Where do you stop and where does it go on? And you need to bring other people in to help solve that problem. And then just being a decision maker, regardless of what level you're at, you have a responsibility. There's something that you're doing on your campus that you're responsible for, and you have to be able to make decisions in order to keep your desk moving or to keep your responsibility going. You really have to be able to think, how do you make decisions to reflect? And again, I always kind of go back to empowerment. You know where your level of responsibility, you know, begins and ends. But within that sphere, you really need to be able to think critically, be able to problem solve, and to be able to make decisions. Those are the 3 skills. The earlier you learn them and the more that you can adapt on those, you will be able to have a strong career.
That's awesome. I hope you guys have definitely jotted those down, and Lee's rendition on problem solving, the GSD model. I'm going to keep it classy since it's being recorded. Folks can hear me. The get done method. You slide whatever you need to in there, but definitely one to keep up there. And I'll add in there one that one of my coaches and mentors used to use all the time was the KISS method. You know, keep it simple, stupid. You don't got to reinvent the wheel all the time. Take the good things that work well for you and then let the other things go. So want to share as a follow-up to those. Devin, as you've gone through this process, you've bumped into some great people, but what questions have you asked yourself when you're considering job opportunities?
Yeah, you know, because I have moved around a lot early on in my career, and there was one situation when I was at the University of Houston. I was considering the job that I eventually took at St. Louis University, but also another opportunity. And I was fortunate enough to work for an athletics director by the name of Dave Maggart at the time. And Dave said this to me. He said, Devin, I want you to think of life in a decade approach. And I didn't really know what he meant at the time. And he goes, could you foresee yourself at this next institution for a decade with your role not changing, with the salary not changing, knowing that maybe your boss could come or go, but could you see yourself in that role, in that city, at that institution for a decade? And if you couldn't foresee yourself being happy or fulfilled, you might want to consider maybe the other job. So that's something I've actually used even to this day when looking at opportunities or even making a decision to come here to Lynn University, is that decade approach. What that will do is that'll sometimes it'll prevent us from maybe hopping to a job because it seems appealing for maybe a next further move, because we just never know what's going to happen in our careers or what's going to happen in the economy, or what's going to happen in the environment. So I think that's been something that worked very, very well for me. The other thing I did, and this might be a little bit more maybe different based on what your circumstances, but if you are, you know, if you're in a relationship, if you're married, have a partner, or whatever, you know, someone that's significant to your life, it's probably important to have conversation with that person in advance. My wife and I, we sat down with a map of the United States way back in 2002. We got married in 2001. So, you know, so about a year into our marriage, I was at the University of Houston at that time. We had a map of the United States, and we looked at the places that we would want to go to and the places that we really wouldn't want to go to. And what that has done is that prevented me from actually seeking jobs that might create maybe chaos in my marriage. Because I've seen that now on the other end, where I've maybe tried to recruit certain coaches or administrators, and hopefully I do a really good job selling Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida, and I get them excited, and they'll call me back, I want to talk to my wife, and I'm thinking, or my husband, I'm thinking to myself, geez, you didn't have that conversation. And that's no judgment. So I would just say this to everybody is be willing to consider, could you be at that place for a decade in that exact role with the exact same salary? And also you might want to have a conversation with your significant other, your partner, your wife, your husband in advance so you don't waste a lot of time and energy pursuing opportunities that might not be appealing to that person.
No, I love that, Devin. You know, being able to keep a happy home, it
Very
makes
important.
makes the job a smidge easier. And also being able to make sure that you're considering, is this a move that I could really be planted a bit, to Kiki's point, like, can
Yeah.
I accomplish some things here? Or is it just going to be another hop, skip, and a jump? And sometimes life happens and you think you could be there a long time and then life happens, but great things to consider. Lee, on the flip side of all that smart decision making Devin made, can you talk to the group about a time where you made a mistake and it really helped you grow?
So yeah, it's no mistake that I get this question because I've made a few in my life. I would say one that I think almost caught me was just that, and I'm going back again the first 10 years of my career, turning down multiple times, turning down the opportunity to work in central administration at Eastern Michigan University. That job was offered to me when I was the ticket manager, and I had worked so hard to get into college athletics that I didn't want to do anything different. I couldn't see, I just couldn't see sort of how that would help me. To Devin's point about, can you see yourself in that job for 10 years? I just didn't see the future. And I turned that job down twice before finally having my wife convince me that it might make some sense to go work in central administration for a while. And so that was one, I think that as I think about things that are the mistake that helped me grow. So now I can talk to people and say, hey, be open to opportunities. When back then I wasn't even open to the opportunities, but I think it was that experience that made me realize that you never know where opportunity is going to come or where your journey is going to lead you, but you have to be prepared to at least consider it. And thankfully I have a wife who is sort of my teammate in this whole thing. And I think that's what Devin was saying about this whole thing. Whoever your significant other is, spouse, family, that's your team. And everybody's got to be in on these life-changing decisions. And so she was a big deal. She helped me see the thing that helped me. I think it absolutely helped me get my first AD's job. There's a whole bunch of other things that I could probably point to as well, but for the sake of time.
No, thank you for that. Kiki, we have, our panelists here have been at a bunch of different type of institutions, different divisions, different governing bodies. Can you talk to us a little bit about how much value individuals should put into division or conference or governing body or level when they're making decisions about possible moves?
Yeah, thanks so much. So the perspective that I come from is somewhat, they always say hindsight is 2020. So for my career, as I shared with you all, I just kind of walked. I call it a faith walk. God was like, go over here. Okay, I'm going over there, not really knowing what I'm actually wanting to do. So I will say that what I'm sharing with you is my thoughts around the end if I had known then what I know now. So the first part of my career, I was, Division I women's basketball coach. So at some point I was like, oh, I think I'm going to be a big time coach. And I was moving along that path. And then I got an athletic director job and I spent some time, 16 years at a school in the NAI. There were some times for me where I started seeing the different things that I wanted. Again, this was not maybe destination, but it was like, oh, I think I might want to go work at a NCAA school. And in the times that I started looking to try to move to NCAA schools, there were some very interesting barriers for me to be able to move. Within the athletics space, I would say we have a caste system. It is very, very class oriented. People don't always, there's not as much flexibility, I feel like, within the hiring space to really assess transitional skills. Like, okay, if I can lead an athletic department with very limited resources for 15 years and be successful, you would think that would translate to being able to go to an NCAA school. Inside the system, no. And I'm saying this because it is what it is. Like, so what I would say to someone now is, right now, based on the way the system is, because there's just not very much flexibility in really, sometimes really reviewing the body of work. It's not there. It's, you have to you work with this certain person or within this division, then you're qualified, even if you've never been an AD. And so I'm being very, very honest. I was told on at least 5 occasions, I didn't have NCAA experience. I was like, but I've been leading for 15 years. Like, but you keep hiring people that have never been ADs, but okay. Like, I mean, I don't, does being an athletic director and leader really matter? I don't know. So to me, you have to think about, in the system that we have, and until it changes, then it just is what it is. This is what we're with. In this thing, Division I want Division I people. Division II want Division II people. Division III want Division III people. NAIA, it's like, well, if you've been Division I, you can come down to NAIA. I would say that is a real hard move for a lot of people because the resources ain't the same. And it's always a struggle when people come from having all of this to woo. So I will tell you, you have to, those are things that I think you should consider. And I'm being as honest as I can. I don't want to make people mad. I'm just being very honest. If you want to be Division I FBS, I would say start at an FBS and stay there. Because it is very hard. And you're talking to a person who is very accomplished, 16 years in the chair. And in 2 chairs, because I was a commissioner and an AD, and it still was like, yeah, you're not ready for an NCAA job. Yeah. Maybe you should go be somebody's assistant. I said, yeah, if I had been in the job for 5 years. So I did my arrogant, cocky thing. It was like, I'm gonna bet on me. I was like, you can't tell me 16 years leading people after a pandemic is not comparable. That's the way I see it, right? But I'm telling you how the industry sees it, okay? So if you want to be, if you're more student, I want to really be a part of the culture and I want to be really close to students, NAIA, D23 are great places to be because that's the focus there. If you want to be a business person and you want to really grow and do some other things outside of that, then, Division I. I don't think either one is bad or good. It's just about what works and clicks for you. And so once you figure that out, then you kind of align yourself that way. But you have to understand how the industry works. And that has been my experience. I think, again, I remember when they used to say, okay, if you go there, you only be there for like a couple of years because you won't be able to get back. You won't be able to move amongst associations. It gets really tough, y'all. Just being quite honest. It gets really tough to move. So that's as honest as I can be. Again, hope I ain't offend nobody, but I'm just, if you know right now, again, I did not know. So it is what it is. But if you know right now, kind of in the space where you feel more comfortable and you want to be, find you an opportunity there and work your way up.
Thank you for that. Now, I mean, obviously we have these sessions to be honest, to be transparent and to give some guidance from your different experiences and your different perspectives, and I think those are things that have to be considered. Now, like anything, there are always the rule and then the exceptions to the rule. And we have to be a little more realistic about what that looks like. Lee, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I think Kiki was spot on with that, and even within Division One, I know I made a conscious effort or decision. I was well aware of my decision when I came to Georgetown. This is the type of institution I wanted to work at, a basketball-centric institution. I turned down 3 Mid-American Conference jobs, which is sort of the place you can go and grow into those Power 5 jobs. But I decided that just wasn't where I thought I'd fit best, and made that decision. But she's right, because you're always answering the question, like, now, do you have football experience? What is football experience, right? What is that? If you can hire coaches, you can hire coaches. If you can run a program, you can run a program. If you can lead, you can lead. There's a whole lot that goes into those jobs, and that you don't control. And so you're not the only one that's making those decisions, good or bad, or if you listen to Shane Lyons, and Shane Lyons is a really good athletic administrator, right? Shane Lyons just got to let go at West Virginia University. So Shane Lyons had football experience, right? So the thing, sometimes I think it is right that people try to sort of stereotype you, but as you're preparing for your career, you need to think through where you want to be. I tell young people today, like, I'm on the backside of this thing. I'm about to bounce. There's younger people that are on this thing. If you want to be in FBS or Power 5, you need to get there as soon as you can, because the best place to do it is where it is, right? And if you want to be in a Power 5 school, you need to get there as soon as you can, because it's going to be hard to go from FCS to FB. Those things are hard to do. So understand who you are, understand what you're looking for in your career. I like the way Devin said it, the 10-year looks at things. And if you want to get there, you need to get there now. You can't talk about getting there in the future. You have to get to where you want to be. And remember, people, it's okay. And I've told a whole bunch of people, like, it's okay not to be Gene Smith. Come on now. It's okay not to be Greg Byrne. It's okay not to be, name another one. Like, we think everything is perfect in those jobs and in those situations, and the money's good, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's where you can provide the most to the student athletes of an institution. It's fit. It's do I align with the mission of the university? I look at what Angel's doing at her institution, and I'm so happy and proud for her. She is killing it down there, right? She's had opportunities to be an AD or be at a different level. I had a conversation with her one time. She said, "This is who I am. This is what I'm about." And I really, really respect her for that. And she's doing a hell of a job there. So her job and her impact on that institution is no less important. It's no less impactful than what Gene Smith's doing at Ohio State, or what I don't even know some of these people. I don't even keep up with it no more. But my point is, all that stuff looks sexy. Everybody says, "Oh, I want to be there, there, there." There's a lot of great institutions. There's a lot of great levels. At the end of the day, all of these jobs are about student athletes. All of them about education. All of them are about helping young people achieve their dreams. When I was at Cleveland State, that's what it was about. It's the same thing at Georgetown. There's no difference. Kids want to be successful, and you want to try to help them do that. So levels and those kinds of things, you have to decide where you want to be, but don't be disappointed at where you are, because you're having the impact that you need to have, especially for young Black people. Especially, they need to see us at all levels, in all phases of this business, so they can see that as a pathway. It's about a little bit more than what your NIL damn value is.
Mm-hmm.
They're making it transactional. See where they're taking us, people. They're breaking you off a little change now, and that's supposed to be this. And the whole key to this thing is education. It's critical thinking skills, like Rochelle said. It's developing your mind, and we are educators first. And so let's not get caught with the okie doke on some of this stuff, man. Let's understand that us being in education and athletics is higher education, and we are educators first. period. I don't care what level you are at. It's most important. I went to Cleveland. I went to the Cleveland State University. Best thing ever happened to me, and I was happy to do it. And it has given me everything I needed to be the AD at Georgetown, where I work with people who went to the Ivy League schools and they work for me. Think about that. All right, I'll shut up.
Lee, you better tell the truth and shame the devil. You better tell the truth and shame the devil. I'm here for all aspects of that. And you're absolutely right. And it leads right into, you know, when you talk about what is your fit, and that's an introspective thing. Everyone needs to take a moment to look back at the person in the mirror and determine, what is it that I want for my career? What is the impact that I want to be making? Who are the people that I'm trying to serve? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And yes, you can do that at any level. And just because a job looks great or has a great name doesn't mean that it's going to provide you the ability to do what you want to do most. And that's going to help you get out of bed in the morning, have your feet hit the floor, and you're taking off full speed, right? You have to find what works for you. And I love that you use the word fitly, because so many people just use it without any definition behind it, right? And I challenge my people all the time, oh, in an interview process, I don't think they're the right fit. And my response is, what are you defining as fit? What is it that we are looking for? Are we looking for a strategic planner? Are we looking for a regional recruiter? Are we looking for somebody who can fundraise X amount of dollars and has proven success in that, right? You must be able to define fit. And so, Rochelle, what recommendation would you give to everyone on here of something that they need to make sure to consider for themselves when they're trying to define their fit?
And you know, Lee said so much of it, but you have to know what for me, I worked at the NCAA for 14 years. This was the old NCAA. This was the Sid Dempsey NCAA. This was 145 days on the road. This was 24/7. You are responsible to the membership. This is having committees and working with the executive committee. I mean, and I knew that I was having a great impact nationally. I was helping coaches, administrators, and student athletes across the nation. But I also knew when I left the NCAA, I would be looking at Division II, Division III. That's what I knew about myself, that what I wanted to do was have direct relationships with student athletes and see them be able to grow and thrive based on my work. Now, I got to Henry Ford College purely because we had illness in the family. I had to come back to Detroit. Henry Ford was here for me. After a couple of years, I got calls from relationships like Kiki. I worked with so many people. I got calls. Okay, you ready to get back into the real athletics? No, I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. I've got kids in this Detroit area who are getting second chances in athletics. They're coming here, getting their associate and moving on to a four-year school playing. Okay, that's exactly where I am. So you have to know, and it does take years, but you have to really know, are you in it for the hustle, the bustle, for the prestige, for the bells and the whistles? You know, you talk about the bells and the whistles. Are you there? Do you want that title and that name behind you? You want that name behind you? Or is it what really at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror and you're saying, I am satisfied with my career, I'm having the impact that I want, and I am balancing it with the rest of my life. So can you always be on the road 140 days out of the year, or do you want more balance? So everybody has to kind of look at your own life, your own lifestyle, and what you're willing to give up. We all know athletics is 7 days a week, but when are you going to determine for yourself, is that what really drives you? And that's great to be at those. Imagine being at, I started as an intern at University of Michigan. Would I have loved to have been there last Saturday when they just beat Ohio State and be in the middle of all that madness? Yes, then, but now, our team is ranked 5th in the nation, and we have the same goals. Our student athletes want to win. We want to have All-Americans. We do win. We do have All-Americans. And so it's that that introspective, where do you want to be and what are you willing to give up at each level, or what do you want to give at each level, and what makes most sense to you?
Thank you for that, Rochelle. So I want to draw everyone's attention to the chat box. Julie has dropped our session survey in there. If you all could please click on that link, it is a quick survey. It helps us with future programming and making sure that we're bringing information that the membership finds to be important. So if you could just click on that before we close out today, I want to draw attention to that. And so before we get out of here, I want to give all of our panelists an opportunity to leave our listeners with one piece of advice as they go out into this world. So we're going to rapid fire, and I'm throwing it to you first, Devin.
All right. I tell you, everything Rochelle and Kiki and Lee, what you said is right on point. I would try to summarize that. I think one of the most important things is that this quote that I've even said to myself so many times is that comparison can be the thief of joy. And it's important that you remember that, because again, Kiki touched on it, Rochelle touched on it, Lee touched on that, is, you may see an administrator at another school and you think everything is perfect there, but you don't know their story. You don't know what's going on, behind the scenes. So just remember that quote, that comparison is a thief of joy. So, I think Lee even said that even early on, is the job that you have right now, that's the most important job that you have. Thank you, Angel.
Absolutely. Rochelle.
I would say don't chase titles and don't chase money. It comes to you. All those things come to you when you just do good work. Just focus on the work. Go in every day, owning what you do, being the expert on what you do. Titles and money will come.
Thank you. Kiki.
Hey, just self-awareness, I think, is being reflective throughout your journey is really, really critical. And I think will assist you as you're determining what works for you. I think the benefit that I had of not really knowing what I wanted to do and having the faith walk is each opportunity built a skill that prepared me for the next one. I didn't know it until the opportunity came and it was like it was mine. And I could tell tons of stories about it, but being self-reflective at every year, like, okay, God, am I doing what you want me to do? Is this where I'm supposed to be? And taking time to really assess what's going on can be very, very helpful as you're determining what's right for you. So keep that faith and take time to continue to self-reflect.
Awesome. Thank you, Kiki. Last but not least, Lee.
Yeah, I think everybody has touched on it. I don't know what else to add, but I would say this: work hard, be the best person you can be, keep a pure heart, meaning come to work every single day to move the mission of the university and to help the kids that you serve. Do that every single day. And I think you'll have a fulfilling career. I think more importantly, you'll have a fulfilling life. And just never accept that you're not good enough. We always get put in the box, well, you haven't done this, you're not external. If you're external, you're not internal, you're not this, you're not that, you're only assistant AD, you're not this, you ain't you have everybody on this Zoom has what they need to be successful. And don't let anybody or don't let any failure tell you otherwise. I mean, that's what it's all about. Just keep believing in yourself. This business is hard and getting harder. You're not going to make a lot of money starting out, but just keep persevering, stay in it, because our young people really need you to be there for them as role models. So thank you, Angel. Thanks to NACTA, which is stay active in NACTA, because NACTA meant the world to me. And I would do anything for NACTA because it's been such a big part of my life and career. So stay involved and act and help others. All right.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I want to leave you all with some big hitters to think about. The relationships that you're building. There's a great deal of ways to do that. Professional organizations, currently where you're planted at, across your conference, or the local community where you volunteer and you serve. You never know what relationship is going to lead to something else down the road. So please focus on that. Those skills, critical thinking, problem solving, and making decisions. At the end of the day, you have to be okay with those three things, or else it's going to be difficult for you to be able to lead others. And last but not least, that I want you all to walk away with is that you need to be introspective. Spend some time with the person looking back at you so that you can define your why and determine what's next for you. I want to thank our panelists for your incredible words, and honestly, for the ability to be able to pick up the phone and send a text message or a quick email to these individuals. And that's a big part of having the network to do that, for them to be able to come and share their expertise with you. And I want to thank all of you all for taking an hour out of your day to develop yourselves and take advantage of your membership with Moaa and NACDA. So please feel free to touch base and reach out to any of the panelists or myself. Thank you all for coming, and have a great week. And good luck to everybody as you're coming up on the winter break.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.